How's everybody doing? I am Nate, host of this Artist Exchange radio show. I have to keep reminding you because I haven't been here in almost a month now, over a month actually. And I've been just, letting this pandemic do what it do. Um, and a couple announcements. One being, check out the Artist Exchange radio show page as well as the group page, the Instagram page. I am doing a couple of kind of like workshop series with various individuals. And you'll be able to find that on the Artist Exchange page. I have a series of interviews that I'm about to start doing for a project that I'm working on called You Thought I Was Him, produced and directed by Troy Burton. And I'll be interviewing a number of people. The first show is going to be 4 people. And then in February, we have a number of people. We have a couple surprise people coming by. So stay tuned for that. You can go to the You Thought I Was Him page on Facebook and Instagram to learn more about who's coming up and more information on the project. I am working in a capacity in this first phase as more marketing and branding and producing and such. So I'm really excited about getting out and doing something within this pandemic. I've been busy for the first part, and this last maybe since September when my grandmother passed away, it's been a little hard trying to get that momentum back. And then I got sick and some things happened, and it's been tough these last 4 months. And that's one of the reasons I kind of took off for December. And now I'm just jumping back out there, doing some things. I've had time to plan. I've had time to get things in order. So that's where I'm at, and that's what I'm doing. You see, I got my Coppin shirt on today, my Coppin sweatshirt. I want to give, that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to give my condolences to Mr. Winky, Mr. James Winky Compour. He passed away on the 7th, and his significance to Coppin State University is he's been the face and the mouthpiece for Coppin for so many years. He is actually an alumni, and he's been the president of that alumni association for a number of years. So him and his wife Peaches, when you saw her, you saw him. You saw him, you saw her. So my condolences goes out to him, to his family, to his wife, to his children, and all his extended family and friends at Coppin and beyond. He will be thoroughly missed. He gave Coppin the biggest parade every time you saw him. So my condolences going out here. So I wanted to wear my Coppin shirt on my first show back to for the New Year's. And I forgot to say Happy New Year to everybody. If I haven't seen you, we have a special guest today, Mr. Caleb Perry. No relation to Tyler Perry, because I do need a role that's possible. So we're going to talk about his journey in music. He's an inspirational artist, and we're going to talk about a Christian artist. I know some people feel funny about using inspirational. Christian artist. He's out of Atlanta now. We'll talk about his journey, his time in Atlanta, what's coming up. He has an album coming out. And then just stay tuned for the last part of the show. I think I'm going to bring Monty on, and we're going to talk a little bit about this Marilyn Mosby indictment from probably the governor of this fair state of Maryland, and just elections and just COVID-19. So I'm back. My energy is, I'm getting there. I put my blue and yellow on today so I can get a little pumped. But I'm really excited. And I just want to say before we get to the interview, please take time for you. Take time for you. Take time for if you're feeling a little funny, if you're getting a little fatigued, outside of even getting COVID-19 or the flu in general, if you're feeling weird, mentally, physically, if your sleep is off, your eating habits are off, take the time for you. I kept trying for the last 3 months. I kept taking a couple days off and trying to come back and getting geared up since Thanksgiving, a little bit before Thanksgiving, actually. I kept trying to come back and get it together, and I just couldn't. And I believe after my last show, I believe that was December the 7th, I just slept that whole week, and my body just wouldn't, it felt like I was sick. So I ended up having to go to the doctors to realize I was just fatigued. I was really fatigued. I was really dehydrated, and I just needed to rest and get it together. And I took an extended period because of the Christmas holiday to really just get things in order. And it's just like when it rains, it pours. So I wanted to send a lot of holiday and well wishes because I haven't posted really since the last show. I just needed that time, that break. I still was a little active because I still was planning things, but I just took the time for me. And as artists, as entrepreneurs, as 9-to-5ers, as parents, as children, as just people, take the time that you need for you before the time takes you. And a lot of people have left here in the past 2 years because we were trying to keep a normalcy in our life. Right now, my God is telling me, be still. Plan and prepare, but be still. And if you don't get it, it will get you. I'm just saying, I've seen a lot of people pass out, fall out, and couldn't get it back together. And they didn't come back from that. So I'm telling you, I'm pleading with you. A lot of people starting to have strokes in this last couple months because I think the pressure is on to try to keep it together. Obviously, a lot of our workplace environments aren't really caring about who we are and our safety. They're trying to cut the days of recovery from COVID from 10 to 5, just so we can get back to work early. The Supreme Court has also ruled that they're not allowed to tell you whether or not you have to get the vaccine in order to have employment. And we're gonna talk a little bit about that next week. I have a guest coming on. We will get into that debacle as well. But without further ado, I want to welcome our guest for today, Mr. Caleb Perry. You can find him on social media, Facebook and Instagram, and I'm sure all over all the digital platforms alike. Is it Caleb on all the digital platforms as well?
Caleb Perry World, yep.
Caleb Perry World, everywhere. Go check this brother out. I'm just meeting him. Thank you to shout out to DB Marshall down in Atlanta, also doing this thing on We Are You Radio. Where you can also find me Mondays through Fridays from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. on the We Are You Morning Show. I'm doing too much, but I'm doing a little bit at a time. So without further ado, let me welcome my guest. How you doing, Mr. Caleb? How you doing today, sir?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
So as I tell all my guests, this ain't the fluff interview. We're here to engage. We're here to talk about you. We're here to talk about your journey. We're not gonna bring no exes out of the closet or none of the crazy stuff, but it's just about you and your message and your journey and what you want to be put out there in the world, and just engagement, a heavy focus on engagement. So without, go get right into it, jump right into it. Let me know a little bit about yourself, where you come from, and let's kind of get that to how we got to Atlanta.
Gotcha. So
the Mecca, the Black Mecca.
Right, the Black Mecca. Well, I'm actually an Air Force baby, so I'm right. It's hard to say one place, but I do claim Cleveland, Ohio. I was raised there. My family is still there. I have a lot of roots there, so Cleveland, Ohio, definitely. As an artist, man, I have had the influence of so many different sounds. So it ranges, honestly, from pop to R&B. Of course, I'm a Christian artist, so gospel CCM, country music. Yeah, as an artist, I'm all over the place.
So how did you get to Atlanta?
So funny thing is, I actually was living in Vancouver, Canada at that point. And I couldn't get a work visa for the type of work that I was doing at that point. And my mom had taken ill. So it was like, okay, it's time to come back. At that time, she was living in Macon, Georgia. And
Okay.
I actually moved to Macon, but I'm a city boy. I'm a big city boy. So that's...
Macon a little urban. It's a little urban.
That is a good word for it. Yes, it is definitely. Yes, definitely. But it's a great city. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to make it.
It's kind of in between the country of Georgia and the city life of Georgia. You get a good cross section.
Right. So that's actually how I ended up in Atlanta. That's the easier story, honestly.
And I know, because I was, if Trump was coming back, I was going to Canada, and I know they are really serious post and before and after the COVID. They have strict, like, you gotta go through some hoops in order to get your citizenship there. They don't just let anybody in.
No,
they put people out, but they don't just let anybody in.
Right, they definitely don't. They are very much about making sure they can take care of their own before focusing on, anyone else. I can say that that's definitely a characteristic of the Canadians, and I love it. It was great. I had a ball there.
So in terms of music, where did that? You talked a little bit about your inspiration, but where did that start? Was it school or after school? Like where did that singing bug come from?
I've always had it.
Okay.
Nothing external sparked it, honestly. As a kid, we have our games, and as kids we have these imaginary worlds. My world was literally finding a computer, pulling up a map, and saying, okay, I have to go here for a tour. I have to go here for a tour and here for a tour. And then after spending maybe like an hour doing that, I would pretend that I was a singer, and, oh, I have to rush to the airplane now, and I'm going to this city for this video shoot.
So you were in the Air Force?
No, my mom was.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm in Air Force. No, that's how I played.
Okay.
Like, that's how, like, I know it wasn't anything external that said, okay, oh, that looks fun. It's, that's how I played. Those were my games. So that's
how did you know you wanted to be a singer, or you just knew something creative was coming?
It was always singing. It was always singing. When I played, I was always a singer. I was always doing a music video or a concert or an award show. So I always knew that singing was it for me.
I remember the music videos, and it was always at Six Flags, or not Six Flags, but I think it was Great Adventures or something like that. They always had these music booths in there, and my dreams were crushed when I did my first video there, because I thought that was going to make me pop off like Mary J, and it just didn't happen that way.
It's okay though. That journey isn't for everyone. It wasn't for everyone. It's okay.
That's a real political way of saying it. That's a real political way. Even if you can sing, I don't think singing is for everybody. Just like I don't think, just because you know how to do something doesn't mean that that's your path. That's a big lesson that I've meditated over in the last couple of years, because you do everything and you don't count the cost of that. You're wasting time from the thing that you're supposed to be moving towards.
Exactly. I can definitely attest to that. And honestly, being young, just going into college, that's where I was, having to learn that lesson. To be honest, I'm a better dancer and a better actor. And the conversation was, go towards that, go to school for that, focus on that. but my heart, my heart wasn't in that. The passion wasn't in that. What I could actually offer wasn't there. So there were a few years, of course, okay, it makes sense that I would try to go for that. But, you know, God saw fit for me to do this.
What has been your biggest struggle?
My biggest struggle has been me, honestly. Being aware, I'm aware that, you know, what I want to sing about, I don't necessarily always fit the culture in different ways. Vocally, I don't sound like most male singers' songs the same way. And, you know, there are different type of riffs and runs and, you know, situations that I just don't do like males. I just don't. And for years, that brought a lot of doubt. It made me feel like, okay, I'm not a good singer, or be doing this, or my voice wouldn't be as valued as this male singer, so I won't make it. Things like that. That honestly, me getting in my own head has been my biggest thing. But yeah, that's what I face.
It is, in my art education, and me training to be an artist, going through the educational system and growing that way, it's very detrimental because you have a lot of people who aren't what they're telling you you could never be, or what is going to be difficult for you. And it can really damage an individual long term. Even when they make it, it can be very detrimental because you begin to fight for things that you shouldn't really be fighting for. You know, somebody else's opinion is just that. And many of us get caught up as artists, trying to be liked and trying to find acceptance instead of just preparing and getting that instrument together, whatever that creative outlet may be for you. When did you solidify that this is what I'm going to do, regardless of whether people like it or not, regardless of the struggle? When did you say that?
So how old was I?
Some people, it was just yesterday. So if it was yesterday, that's cool.
Yeah, no, it was years ago. It was definitely years ago. I had made a decision that, okay, I want to sing. I want to sing. Now, there's levels to this. What did I want to sing? I listened to a lot of music, and I'm inspired by a lot of different genres.
Right.
So then that was another level. If we're talking about becoming solidified in wanting to sing Christian music, that was the past 5 years. The past 5 years, I was set that, okay, I know I definitely want to go into singing about God, singing about what I love, singing about my faith and what that means for me. That was the past 5 years. And then, of course, there's hurdles through that I've had to work through as well. So there's levels to it. And to be honest, you know, life is ever evolving. So it's not like anything is ever going to be perfect.
Right.
There's always going to be something to look at or to, you know, sit down and say, hey, let me think about this. How does this make me feel? What are the struggles of this level or this place that I'm in today? Yeah, I can say, you know, my most recent thought, or I don't want to call it a struggle, but a growing moment was deciding talking points. Honestly, what do I want to share with the world, and what does that mean? What does it look like? Do I take on the responsibility completely if they take it a certain way, or why am I here? Why am I here? What's the real purpose? I think the word success is very, 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 very important, and defining what that is. Getting to that point and really, really defining what success is, that's been my last hurdle or growing moment.
Especially in the field of music you are venturing into, not to limit you to that one, but it's been a lot of young artists and just artists in general who have publicly come out and either denounced it for a period of time or have been really conflicted in terms of what they're singing about and having to feel like they're being caged in and locked into a doctrine versus an artistry that is from God. Like just deciding which way they were going to go. I know a lot of gospel singers who are now secular singers because the stress of maintaining the appearance of your life was harder than the talent.
Right.
And it can be too much. It can be too much for any artist, but specifically when you're coming from a faith-based world, it can be hard because it feel like you have more scrutiny or more eyes on you.
Well, definitely. I feel like on both ends, whether it's a faith-based genre that you're in or, just popular culture, we know cancel culture, like on both sides, artists get it. But for me, my biggest thing has been with the genre that I claim to be a part of is, like you said, the culture of it. What's the culture really supposed to be? So my approach is different, and that's going to be another growing moment, really owning my platform. So like my new single that came out today, I don't mention God once. It's not a worship. It's not a worship.
They go get you. Ex Murray when they came out.
Exactly. Even though, they were very clear. They said Jesus, they said God, like they made it very clear. It was the sound of it. It didn't fit the culture at that time.
Not at first. When they came out at first, I'm not disputing them. They were saying him, and people had a problem because they would not say the word God. They said everything but God. And I don't think anything was wrong with that because they were supposed to bridge the worlds. That was their calling. But that world can be brutal.
I just think it's so interesting, that, there's that distinction of world. For me, as a Christian, Jesus Christ is supposed to be a part of life. So why are we making so separate? My approach to my music is relation, right? So we're supposed to have a relationship with God. That's supposed to be how we, define or it would be ideal to define our relationship with others like we do with God.
Right.
So a lot of my music, I've been told, who are you really talking to? Well, I'm talking to God, but it's a relationship, right? Relationships are relationships. In relationships, you talk about this, you may talk about that, you may talk about this. You may not always be happy-go-lucky. You may, have questions. You may have doubts. You may say, I forgot this, I forgot that this was a characteristic of you. Sorry, my bad. That's with any relationship. That's where a lot of insecurities come from. So with God, we doubt him at times. With the spouse, we'll doubt and say, hey, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, treat me like this, things like that. So that's my approach with it, which, is going to cause more of a struggle because I'm not eliciting, we're trying to elicit emotion from anyone. I'm really not.
I worry about faith. I worry about all artists, but I specifically worry about faith-based artists because, of course, your faith has to come first, and the talent then, well, if that's your choice. But typically, the faith comes first, and then the business and the artistry follows that. And I see a lot of them struggling with being, quote unquote, worldly artists within their faith-based genre. And you see them now we have Kanye and Snoop Dogg putting out gospel music, and the world is being really, it feels like the lines are being blurred. But I think that's what as you said before, it's why do we try to separate the worlds when one is supposed to use the other, or be a use of to the other.
Right.
I think it's still rules and doctrine and processes that are still staples. And it's that other side of, if you're talented, as long as you don't make a spectacle, then we can forgive you. Or we can push it, not forgive you, but push it under the rug. But are you worried about, not to say you have a salacious background, but are you worried about the scrutiny of it all going into this field?
Well, no. I'm not worried about it. Mm-hmm. My thing is, what was the point of Jesus Christ? We talk about it, we preach about it, we sing about it, we'll do all of this, but when it comes to actually displaying it to others, there is a stigma.
Yeah.
He came to save us from our sins. He came to forgive us. So why do we promote the idea of not being sinful?
Because we look at humans more than we look at the relationship, more than we look at the word, and it becomes very detrimental because you're trying to balance that. Look at some of the artists out there who are secular, who reek of God, and typically they're always struggling with something less major. Not to say nobody else is, but you see their struggle differently. The Whitney Houstons of the world, the Fantasias of the world, you see their struggle all over their body. You just see it. And I really, I feel for a number of artists. We just had an issue with, I'm a big fan of Leandra Johnson. The world could have lost that talent because people were trying to fit her into this imaginary box that she obviously didn't fit into.
Right.
So that's typically my concern.
I feel honestly it won't change until we let go of concern and continue to push this. So yes, there are going to be many that get hit with the first, being the first.
The first stones. You can say it, a couple first stones.
I was going to say lips and lashes. They're going to be the first. Right. But we can't be afraid of that, because if we are, then it won't change. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I wholeheartedly believe we need to go back to the purpose of Jesus, why he came in the first place, and let go of that. We're supposed to be clean. We're supposed to be able to judge you on your sin. But all of that, we're not here for that.
Right.
We were never.
Well, that seems to be the plan or the strategy right now. But I like how it's being altered and forced to be altered, even from some of the older artists. It's just coming out different now, and they have to adjust. We are living in a world where people don't believe it until they've seen it a number of times, and it's in their backyard. That's when people begin to latch onto it in the faith world and outside in just the general air of everything. But I'm interested to know who are some of those people that you listen to when you're kind of getting yourself in a zone.
Ariana Grande.
Okay.
That's where it ends. Honestly. That's where it is.
We gotta infuse some more stuff in there. We gotta infuse some more stuff in there.
Yeah. So what I can say, specifically to that question, if I'm trying to get into the zone, I'm only listening to Ariana Grande. Now, there are other elements. So Brandy's BGVs and how she layers. I layer. I'm a layer. I'm a layer all day if I could. That's in there. It doesn't necessarily, listening to her doesn't make me want to write, doesn't get me into the, oh, I'm an artist mood, but her influence is there.
Okay.
If we're talking about, imagery and things like that, stage presence, Michael Jackson to a degree. Michael Jackson to a degree.
Those are some big shoes to follow.
So I'm not trying to follow his shoes at all. At all. Not at all.
He was having a hard time keeping up.
Of course. At that level, most humans would, almost anyone would, honestly.
Right.
And that's the thing. He was human. So at the end of the day, he made it there. Well, what would happen to me if I made it to that point? Like, I don't know. I don't know yet. So his influence is there. Who else could I say? Whose influence? Karen Clark Sheard's, well, more so Kiera Sheard. Her influence is there in live performance. So there are certain people that, their influence is there. But if you're asking who I hear, and I'm gonna say, oh, I gotta work, I need to work, it's Ariana Grande.
What is it about? I mean, maybe because she's like the generation behind me, but what is it about her? Because I hear artists speak about her the way they would speak about, say, a Mariah or Whitney or Luther, or what is it about her?
So with the names that you just named, all the reasons that, a certain generation would immediately go to them is what Ariana is giving to the new generation. She does have the talent. She does have the ability. She is a copy of, who's come before. And so though Whitney, Mariah, they're still around and, they still have that influence. The impact that they had when they hit is what she is now. Now, for me, specifically, I appreciate her approach to the music. It is how I approach music in regards to do this type of run. Go into your head voice here, go into your falsetto here. The switch up. The switch where she would switch is where I would naturally switch. Like, oh, I get it. That makes sense to me. Whereas if I'm listening to Whitney Houston, let's take Whitney Houston. Can I hit some of her notes? Yeah. Can I
confidence. Come through confidence.
I have the range. I definitely have the range. Can I attack a note like her? Maybe not. She has more of a powerhouse. I have more of a softer, but I have range.
But my biggest concern is don't like me right now. My biggest concern with the last two generations coming up in music, technically a lot of you have that ability. I'll call it ability just across the board. And it's not a knock, but it's almost feels like because, you take a picture of a picture of a picture, and at some point it starts to like lose its quality and it gets really pixelated. And I'm trying to equate ability and kind of minus that out and just understand technically a lot of artists that I hear today, they're talented. They're just missing that depth. And I hate to say that respect for the history of music.
Well, let's just take
I
life.
feel like it's missing.
Let's take life. Let's take music and everything out of that. We can say the younger generation does that in every aspect.
Yeah.
Because they don't, and I hate to say it like this, but what's the need for the depth? So.
Oh my God, I'm nervous. I'm just.
Don't be nervous. Don't be nervous.
When I'm 80, like I'm nervous because I hear a lot of artists say that. I
So
hear that. Mm-hmm.
When I say that, okay, I'm trying to think of an example.
I'm praying. I'm about to start praying. I'm about to start praying, Mr. Caleb. I'm about to start praying.
You should pray at all times. You should pray at all times.
Yeah, but I'm about to go into deep meditation prayer. I'm just nervous. I'm nervous that we are learning techniques, but we're not learning depth and longevity and quality, and everything is just.
So no, that's not what the world's after anymore. It's just like, okay, there was a standard before. If the street lights came on, you're in the house, period. There was a standard of, yes, children, you do sit there and you don't talk back. Your opinion doesn't matter. All of that has changed. All of that has changed. And with that, it's not music. I don't want to say it's the music industry. It's life. It's how people are being raised. So when I say, what is the depth needed for? There was more, I don't want to say more, but the concern of, yes, a Black person cannot walk down the street was 10 times more intensified than it is today. So the depth of putting that into your child or the younger generation, it's not as, I don't want to say important, it's not as and let's be honest, it is different because you can walk outside. You can walk outside now. You can go into a store. It is different when if you walk over here, yes, they can hang you and nothing will happen to them. That's different. Now, it doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. It doesn't mean that that someone won't, try. That's different.
It's still, I mean, you're in the South. It still happens.
It's still happening.
Talked about.
But it's not a thing of, it is a standard where if you're Black and you walk somewhere, you'll die. That's not a standard anymore. The standards have changed in life and in music.
You've been watching the news, Mr. Caleb. That's not what's happening on the news. It's just not being done by, it feels like we're doing it to ourselves, or it's police, and then it's the other. But I get where you're going, and I'm speaking about music because that's what we're talking about. But it is culturally a part of where we are right now to kind of, we did that already. Let me do something new. But every generation has to take something from the history of what's happening and not just what's hot. Of course we see what's hot, but the reason that Whitney will be immortal, or Michael or Prince would be immortal, or Bob Marley is immortal, because there was a level of depth and connection to the history. And I just feel like in music today, even in gospel music, I feel like there's a pull to kind of separate. So let Shirley Caesar do what she do, but I do this. And everything is about the runs that you can do and the acrobats that you can do with your sound versus what's your message? What are you saying? Will this song live 40 years from now? And I don't see that.
If we're talking message, I think a lot of people confuse message with sound.
In music, isn't it the same thing? I mean, it's two separate concepts, but they kind of are necessary for each other, for the longevity of your music. I don't want people putting out gospel mixtapes. That's going to bother me. I want them to, in the gospel world, typically gospel artists, you have your commercial ones that have grown its success, the CeCe Winans, the Kirk Franklins, the Tamla Manns, Shirley Caesar, where they've kind of risen in the ranks. But typically gospel artists are touring artists. They're out there in the congregations, in the world, you know, engaging, and they live off of music like rock music or jazz musicians do, where they can live off a song for 4, 5, 6 years, you know, an album, and then put something out, and then you're like, oh, you got a new album coming out? It's not the same walk as it is with the rest of the music. The other genres where, you know, they feel like they gotta put out an album every year or to be relevant. That relevancy comes, I think that's the word to use in the moment.
So
How
my
relevant
question
it
is, what's wrong with that?
Relevancy?
Outside of preference. Yeah, what's wrong with taking a different approach in regards to, let's, you know, approach that aspect a little differently, and I'm just playing devil's advocate, not to say that it's right.
And I agree, but you can't recreate the wheel.
Why can't
everything, and every young person learns this lesson. Everything that you can think about doing can be sourced back somewhere. Every single thing that you think about has a source.
Exactly. And so you had made the comment, you know, taking from the past. Just like you said, everything that's done does come from the past. There's nothing new under the sun. It's not going to be like
the acknowledgement of it, first the acknowledgement of it and the relevancy of it is my issue when it comes to these younger artists and some of these older artists that's trying to be young. The relevancy factor and the idea that this came before and you didn't just go to bed and dream of this. You know, you may have gotten it in a dream, but trust and believe you heard that throughout your life somewhere and is now connecting in this moment with your creativity. But a lot of the young artists don't feel that type of respect to it.
A lot of the older artists didn't do that until later in their career. So when Michael Jackson first did the moonwalk, did he say, oh, I just took this from Fred, oh my God, look how I...
But he acknowledged Fred Astaire, he acknowledged James Brown. So his acknowledgement of him loving them beyond nature, beyond, you know, measure, was a testament to him taking from what they were doing and creating this, like he has a
the artist
patent for his moonwalk and his style of dance.
Right. So artists do. It sounds like, you know, there's two levels to it. There is acknowledging, you know, who inspired you versus who did you take from. And honestly, none of the artists, I took this from this person. Artists don't do that until later in their career or until after they...
But see, I think that's the difference in the generation, because older artists, they came out the back saying, hey, I love Aretha. You still hear them saying it today. Now, there was, I think in my generation, is where the shift started to happen, where we just started to take samples of people's work and then trying to turn it into something totally different. I think my generation is when that started. But there's always, every artist that you know that may be over the age of, I'll say 40, you always heard that homage to their sound, their techniques, the riffs that they did, there was always an acknowledgement of it. And I'm not saying that as an artist you have to do that, but it gives one validation of what your talents are, and that they didn't just poof out of nowhere. Like you've lived and experienced life, so that's where it's coming from. But I feel like a lot of young people just refuse to acknowledge, like, I didn't get this from her. This came out of my throat. Like, You was listening to your mama's music and you learned that riff. That's where it came from.
I haven't necessarily seen that. I haven't seen, I can't say to the point, okay, let me rephrase that. I can't say to the point where a lot or where the majority is. Because in regards.
I don't think it's a secret. You work in a school. That's where I hear it. I see the disconnects when I'm with my students. That's when I hear the disconnects. Like they don't know the origin of that song. So they'll play me a song and they don't know where that song came from, or they don't know where that sample came from, or that line came from, or that reference came from.
So, but I feel that way about many other artists. Tina Turner, when she did Come Together, she didn't go around saying I took this. Let's go to Elvis. He doesn't, well, we know he doesn't.
First of all, you're not going to mess with my Tina Turner. She was right legit.
But
it was different though when you knew when they were doing a remake of a song though. You know, it wasn't an acknowledgement, but they had to make the song different or they were just doing that artist's song.
Right.
Like the whole idea of Whitney Houston and I'll Always Love You. That song lived before Whitney touched it, but it certainly will not be considered Whitney's after she touched it.
When they released it, she did not say that we took this from someone. And that's my thing.
Well, we already knew, but see, it is, I think the saying that it was, we already knew, like there was already an idea of who a Dolly Parton was. So we knew her music. Of
Dolly Parton, but with acknowledging it. That's what I'm saying.
Y'all just refuse. That generation just, I can typically know how old someone is by how they have this conversation. And I get it. I remember being 22, 23, 24 and not understanding everything that came before me, like getting into arguments with my professors in college because I just thought I knew everything.
It's specifically the words that are said. The words that were said was acknowledge when you take something. That no one does that when they're first hitting. Now, if they say inspiration,
right now,
inspired, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Because I think before it was more so paying homage to the person who did it, you know, and I hate to always be on a Whitney train, but she did that to a number of artists. You know, Mary J. Blige did that to a number of artists where they would remake a song, you know, and you knew where it came from. You knew where I'm Every Woman came from. You knew the origin. You couldn't deny that was a Chaka Khan song, but I'm paying homage to someone I respect, that I publicly said, I love this person, you know, and I'm seeing in this generation, it's just,
I think that's different. I'm talking about different things. If you're saying that, okay, I'm paying homage and I'm doing this because this person inspired me, versus I'm coming out and saying, I took this. That's two different things. Coming out and saying it and doing it.
Young people are not, and I hate to sound like I'm 80 years old, but the younger generations now are not doing it. They're not saying, hey, this is where I got this from. They just, actually, it's more lawsuits in the last 15 years than I've ever seen in music for copyright infringement. Now, I'm not saying it never happened, because it definitely was a racial thing at one time where we would make something and they would try to take it and make it their own, and they legally had rights to do that. But I think now it's like, I don't even know where this hook come from. It sounds good. I don't even know where the hook come from. And if you don't have a knowledgeable producer, it's almost a total disconnect.
So does that equate to them saying that or not saying who inspired them? Because artists are always asked who inspired, and that's what I'm saying. The sentences are being mixed.
I don't want to throw your homegirl under the bus, but Ariana Grande didn't come out saying, I love Mariah Carey. She came out saying, I'm going to replace her. A woman that's still here. I don't want to throw dirt on your inspiration's name, but I'm just...
It did change. her tone absolutely changed and she was wrong. She changed when, there was a comment that started going around that Mariah didn't. Mm-hmm. That's when she started saying that, oh no, I'm the new one. She first came out starting saying, hey, I learned from Whitney Houston and Mariah. She said, that's where I learned from. Mm-hmm. And then, blogs do what they do, people say whatever, and it gets to people's head. And then she stopped mentioning her. So it wasn't the young generation, Ariana Grande, she not owning up to it because she did. And I guess they're back on good terms because she started doing it again. I don't
She did it the right way, but she did it the right way this second go around versus you just taking something and just singing this lady's songs randomly. And you're not, it happens so much, and it's not a new thing, but it wasn't so much of I need to pay reverence to you, but you are enjoying snippets of somebody else's hard work without saying, hey, I really like this person, because it became a thing of, I can't do that because then you're going to think I'm trying to be this person. So I'm just going to jack that style and just, we see that across the board. In terms of where you want to go with your faith, what do you think you bring to faith-based music today? What will Caleb bring to faith-based music today?
Moving people towards relationship, letting go of the culture and the culture.
Oh my God! We can't.
So, but that's what's wrong. That's honestly the culture. When I say culture, I'm talking about focusing on I have to look right. Yes, we're supposed to let go of the culture, especially with Jesus. What did Jesus do? He literally came and said all of it is wrong.
Right. He wasn't worrying about how many riffs or how sharp you look.
Everything about religion and the culture of Christianity, and it wasn't called, well, we know it wasn't Christianity at that point, but everything.
Judaism.
He said, okay, if that's what y'all gonna do, that's what y'all gonna do, but that's not the way my father rolls. They had centuries of laws, rules, and this is how it's supposed to be done. And he said, no. So how is it that, we're in a different time, we have our rules, we have our ways, and it's not to say, not for good reason. They came about for reasons. They came about because of our experience. Someone wanted something to be changed, and it was changed for the time. And we got stuck there. Great, okay, whatever. But that doesn't mean it's always right. That doesn't mean that the culture is the way to Jesus Christ.
But it's us. And so us to find it. Before we're seeking to change it, I think we first have to come up with a consensus of what it is. Because I think we're getting rid of parts of our history that we should not. And when I say culture, I mean history. A culture is like a neighborhood of people around you who think, feel, taste, smell like you do. And it doesn't necessarily mean Black, but within our Black culture of our music, I feel like we're leaning and it happened because the generations before began to pay more attention to it. So now we have in faith-based, we have a Kirk Franklin who came out trying to be sharp and putting his image above his work. And I'm not saying that faith wasn't there, but I do believe the image of a Christian singer became more important than the message. And then, of course, you got to do all those wild acrobats and, then we all sound alike now. And
right. I would say that image has always been a thing for faith-based anything.
well, decency and order was. So, cleanliness is next to godliness. So that became the Dottie Peoples of it all, where she was sharp at all times. But I think the image of that has
But that's
super
not the way to Jesus
exceeded the
Christ.
message. Say it again.
That's not the way to Christ, how you look, or
So that's when you say building relationship, that's what I think about when you say that.
That you do.
Mm-hmm.
Many people don't. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of people in the culture, they still associate the image being how you get to Jesus Christ.
Right.
So again, no, you can't. You have to be blameless. You can't have sin. You can't struggle. Let's take, something that, I say it's still a little bit fresh. How people went to church. That was a huge thing, wearing jeans to church. Mm-hmm. It was a transition. But before, there was a culture of you cannot do that. Mm-hmm. And so when I say culture, letting go of culture, I mean that. I mean, let's stop saying that you have to, males, you cannot sing an alto or a soprano or that ain't Jesus. That's preference.
But see, that becomes people's individual shortcomings and insecurities playing a part. So what you're speaking of is the individual. Because exactly. It turned into the collective because, because there's still things that I hold tight to. I won't go to someone's funeral dressed down. That's just something I was taught. It is about, it's connected to respect and reverence to the space that you're in. And just because we may not be in a church and we're in a funeral home does not take that responsibility away from you. But I get what you're saying. It's just figuring out, we have to then let the individual know, relax, come as you are.
Exactly. And we started doing that in regards to, clothing. It takes people to start getting that message and stop demonizing everyone because of our preferences.
Well, one of the things, so I used to be in charge of the drama ministry at my old church, and I had to let the young people know, you can't break sister such and such, elder such and such, no more than you want them to break you. So you have to give that same grace and mercy to people who have done it this way. Eventually they'll start, prime example, look at the Clark sisters. They always talked about how they had to dress and how they had to, present themselves, but time allowed them to have their own individuality, and they didn't look like the triplet sisters. But Tom had to do that. Tom will change a heart or change a habit, but we have to give that grace when we're speaking about what has been, versus young people coming in there and like, we just cut all these ties, just cut all of it, everything, just throw it out. Because what has gotten you to that point is, those people practicing that, and they got you to this point to now add your just to it, and now it's going to be this. It befitting that we're in January, where we celebrate Martin Luther King, and then February for Black History, and it's this old adage where they had to sit so we could stand, and then the next generation could run. So we have to. We have to go back to grace and mercy. Decency and order, just the basic tenets, and build on that.
I definitely agree. And I think it goes both ways. It's not right for the runners to expect the walkers to run. It's not right for the walkers to say, y'all running, slow down.
Yeah.
Crawlers, if you're crawling, crawl. None of it is wrong. And that's where I want to, not to say I'm going to change the music industry or the world, but that's my fingerprint. That's me. My thing is, if that's how you do it, great and amen. That doesn't equate to me finding Jesus. So for example, my Jesus moment, my come to Jesus moment wasn't with the word. And so many would say, you didn't get saved because of the preaching? No, it was because of someone's voice. Just because you're saved based off of the preacher and I'm saved based off of the singer, why do we have this battle? Why is there a fight? Because
well, I'll say there's been more of an acknowledgement. That's why we have a music ministry. That's why we have a fine art ministry. That's why we have a dance ministry, because there was a idea. Because before, none of them instruments was in church. Nobody was dancing. That was, against the cardinal rules. But over time, and time happened, we've realized that everybody has a different learning style. Some people don't get it simply by sitting in a pew, following along in their books. Some people need to see the dance and get convicted in that way, or hear that song that convicts them, or watch that production that convicts them. I think that's been over time, and we're seeing that steadily grow, but you still see the older members in those churches that fight against that still, fight about how much of that, because they know the word. At the end of the day, it's the word, and we're all saying that. Everybody is saying the same thing. I just think everybody is choosing not to listen and hear each other. You're saying what you're saying, and I'm just waiting to react. And that happens within the body of life in terms of people in general. The reason so many people hate church and are so venomous about church is because of experience they had with an individual or individuals. So they can't separate the individual from the body that is church or religion, and so they begin to blame Christianity, or they blame, them Pentecostal people, they a little off. But it's the individual. And we continue to look at the messenger and avoid the message. Because at the end of the day, elder such and such, she not lying, it's the word. Or he, it's the word. It has nothing to do with how you sing that run. Because if you're not connected to the word, that run is just a run.
And
it's not a ministry.
What hurts my heart is a lot of what's taught isn't the word.
Mm-hmm.
It goes back
it's
to
opinion.
The purpose of the church. And so
individual, but say individual though, because it helps you to understand where it's really coming from. Because it's not coming from the body of that church, it's coming from the individual.
So I feel like a lot of it though, a lot of experience, when we find that, when someone is faced with that, they are reiterating what's taught across that church. And so yes, it's the individual of the leader, honestly, from the head down, but let's have that grace in understanding that if one person taught it and now all of these people believe it and now they're pushing it on you, it is the body of that church.
But just know that a lot of people in that church may feel the way you feel, but they're still stuck with, I gotta come to this building. I think this pandemic put a lot of people on their tails because it forced them to understand, I could really sit at home and watch the service and get the same feeling.
Facts.
And feel the same way. And many people, because they thought that was wrong, and we got to get back into the church. You can't tell us we can't have church. So you're going to risk the lives of all these seniors at this church despite a new way of doing things.
And
that many of them were already many of them wanted to be televangelists. Many of them are trying, it's so many networks now. Many of them are trying, but now that was the only choice you had, you forgot the word. You can get the word from anything.
Right. And the thing where the fight comes in, again, it's wrong if you do it that way.
But at the same time, you are forcing people who have a habit of doing this. You want them, I'll never forget this. In college, we did a play called Amen Corner. And I grew up in Catholic church. So some of the hymns are similar. They just sound different. And I did not know the words to this song. And my professor, who was 60 some years old then, she admonished me for not knowing these songs because I was Black. And I said to her, I said, well, I was raised in Catholic school and Catholic church. I went to Black churches every now and again, but I was still stuck in what we did Monday through Friday.
Right.
What I did on Sunday was like, that was 1 day versus 5 days.
Right.
And I remember asking her, I said, how long did it take you to learn those songs? She's like, probably into my adulthood or my teenage. I said, so you're asking me to learn something in a fraction of the time that it took you to know it and know that you know that you know that you know it. Hey, Sharon, good evening. But it really just, both sides have to have that understanding for each other. It can't just be the elders relinquishing control and letting these little vagrants come in, these little young papas come in and just take over and change everything. Because ultimately what happens is the word gets muddled. Because now I went to a church for the first time maybe like 3 years ago, and the pastor had on a sweatsuit, and I could not. Hey Sharon, I could not understand. Like I was looking at his sweatsuit the whole time. He had a Russell gray sweatsuit on with Tim's, and I could not get past it. I've read, and in my mind, I had built up an image of what you're supposed to do when you go into the body of church, and that was a habit that I had developed. But it stemmed from my faith. Like you come ready, but you come as you are. But that was a choice that he made. It was a purposeful choice that he made, and that's him trying to connect with his younger audiences. Yeah. However, you have to understand how people felt. Like you came every day with a suit on and your collar, and now you wearing Russell sweatsuits. What's going on, sir? You feeling some kind of way?
So here's the thing with that, and I hear you and I agree because I came from a particular background in church. My thing, what hurts my heart is we push people away when they become vagrants because they're doing something different.
I was trying to say.
No.
I didn't mean to call them vagrants.
No, but here's the thing. But that's reality. Right. But that's the reality, right? And where you may be joking, there are so many people that are serious about that. And what hurts my heart is we turn people away from Jesus because we demonize them from what we're taught or what we prefer. Right. I get it. And everything shouldn't be thrown away and
but you just admit that the younger generations have that attitude. Like they ready to clean house. They want to get rid of everything, get rid of the pews, get rid of the pulpit. Let's do this in the round. Let's just kumbaya, sit on some pillows.
I feel like every generation where there was a transition went through that, where, because let's take us as teenagers. If you're telling me that this is wrong, what's the younger generation? What did we do? Most likely, we went out and did it.
But I have to say, and it wasn't necessarily across the board, but it was the majority. There was still a transition that happened where you earn your space to be able to make a change in the house of God. It wasn't, it's my turn. First of all, you'd have been kicked so far out of that building that you would have forgot where the building was. Well, but it was the idea of you had to learn something in order to question it. Now I'm just hearing people question it. I tell my students that, how are you answering a question and I haven't taught you anything yet? You got to learn something first. Learn the basis of what you're trying to change versus you just looking at something and saying, I don't like that. Because now you're just as much on the surface as you're saying other people are. So it's just going around in a circle.
So how is it one side can ask one to be deeper and not the other side? So just like you said,
right.
And we both keep saying it, both sides have to chill out.
But it's an acknowledgement. It's an acknowledgement that I think the elder generation they don't, it's like, if I let you borrow my car and you keep coming back with scratches on it, I'm not gonna trust you with my car no more.
Right.
And it's that idea of you have to, as young people, you have to earn your way in. Just because you're youthful and full of energy, don't equate to now I'm in charge. Because you can't kick out what was there. You have to give some type of time for growth where you're learning. Because then if I know what the rules are, I follow the rules because I know what the rules are, and I know what the rules are because I follow them. I know how to then change them. As a teacher, I know how to make a classroom better, but I can't just come in there as a regular odd off the street just because I was in a school at one time and say these things need to change. If I didn't have that experience in the classrooms, I wouldn't know what would be the best practices. But I'm just saying on the side of a lot of the elders, they're seeing young people that just want to replace them. And that's not just in the church, that's just across the board in life in general. They young people want their turn, but they're not willing to do the work to prepare for their turn.
So I hear you with that. I feel a big part, there are many elements to that. I really do. I feel like, or what I've noticed, because it's not my experience, I can say that it's not my experience necessarily. Mm-hmm. But a lot of it is, there's not even the conversation of, hey, this is how I want to change it. All of a sudden, there is no, that's wrong, no. And what breaks my heart is younger generations, and I do get this, they're not given that explanation of why, not now, not this time, this is why you don't do this. It becomes, it's just.
Because I said so.
Right. And honestly, the new generation doesn't operate like that. It's okay, if we have a conversation, okay, got it, understand. I may not.
But do you see the tad bit of selfishness that's in that arrogance? I want what I want because I want it now.
I think that's both ways, because what's wrong with, it's coming from both. What's wrong with the older generation saying, hey, I get it, I see you.
But they do, but the thing is, and I think the discrepancy is, they do see us. They see the younger generation.
They may not acknowledge it. They may see
the difference, but the difference between them and them is experience. Now I know that you probably would do the best that you can do, but guess how many brick walls you will run into not knowing the basis of what you're trying to take over and change.
And all of that is understood.
You cannot, we are in 2022. There's nothing that has happened or will happen or did happen that didn't already happen before.
Right.
And you just know, and I think my perspective is, I was raised by a great grandmother, not just a grandmother, but a great grandmother. So I have a certain level of patience, but I still have a youthful arrogance that I don't want to plan, I just want to do it. And it's such a struggle in me because those are polar opposite feelings. And I often have to sit still and plan and do little pieces of it. So I feel this side feel fulfilled, but this side also feel fulfilled. And I'm not driving myself crazy. And I'm a Gemini, so I'm split already. So just imagine, just imagine having that foundation in having an 80-some-year-old woman in your house as a child and not having any idea, but just learning how to just sit still on a Saturday. We're just gonna sit here and we're gonna watch the shows and you're gonna sit and be quiet and you're gonna enjoy them. And now I would love to do that. I would love to do that, but I've had the basis of that knowledge and that information on how to be patient.
Right.
Whereas though some of my friends didn't grow up with that, and it was definitely apparent because I became the old man friend. And and I think the youth have to submit and the elders have to learn how to be mentors again and legacy build again. I think the older generations forgot how to build a legacy for us all while they were building a legacy for themselves.
Yeah.
You know, it became about their resume, their legacy, their, retirement, and they forgot about all of these, my generation, probably your generation. We're missing that. I'm a millennial, but I'm at the very top of the millennial space. And it's a weird thing for me to look at the younger millennials. Like, you need to sit still. Like, you're doing too much right now. And them not know, it becomes a battle then. Like, this is a healthy conversation because we're listening to each other. But imagine, working in the school, it really, I pray when I'm getting dressed. I pray when I'm brushing my teeth. I pray when I get into the parking lot. I pray on the road there, like, because you have to mentally prepare yourself for somebody to say you aren't relevant.
Right.
Or to test your relevancy.
I feel, I absolutely love everything that you said in regards to what both sides need to do. Mm-hmm. Because it goes back to what I'm trying to say. One way doesn't make the other way go to hell. So for example, the past few years getting into the school system, I've noticed if a teacher yells at a student,
that's me.
So there's a difference. So sit down. What is wrong with just disrespect? Mm-hmm. I think there's a difference in leading and being disrespectful. They'll disrespect the student. But let their admin come to them and disrespect them. Who does she think she is? I don't need that. Like, we have the same emotions that a child would.
But so look at that from the other side too. I would not have to tell you to sit down if you were sitting down.
So here's my thing though, with that.
Oh, you said, how old are you? Please tell me your age. How old are you?
I'm 33, about to be 34. So here's my thing. We're always considering our perspective. Mm-hmm. Yes, we may be more wise.
The chicken or the egg? Which came first, the chicken or the egg? That's going to be a debate until God send Noah back.
But my communication. What does it matter? What communication on both ends?
But but understand, if I as an elder in my environment, if you're not willing to hear me because I'm not relevant to you, me giving you sound advice like have a seat, listen. That person isn't telling that person anything wrong, but that person feels like I need to stand up right now. I need to.
Here's the thing. What's wrong with pausing and say, let me not say that sentence like that. Have a seat. Why can't, and I'm being 33,
why? But you've told a child, have a seat. You've had that tone come out.
And I'm used to that tone. I'm used to that tone.
Right, but you know what got you to that tone. Like, have a seat.
But does that make it right to give it to somebody?
It doesn't make it right, but it makes you human. It makes them to
receive from you, and then expect them to receive from you. So just like I do, and I agree with you, yes, the younger generation does have an issue with submitting. The older generation has a problem with pausing, with their pride, and with their experience in saying, let me figure out how I need to talk to you. Because right now it doesn't matter. I just need to give this to you and I'm going to give it to you how I give it to you. And you need to be able to receive it. Pause. It don't work like that.
Oh, sorry. You would have got it in my place. Because I'd have gave you though. But it's the thing of, it's hard to say because everything is nothing that you're saying that's incorrect, but something has happened with our young people today that they have not gotten the lessons that many of us have got.
Frustration.
It's frustration, but that's personal. That has nothing to do with the level of experience that I bring to a situation. So you're telling me I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know what I'm talking about, I'm not relevant. You go sit down and shut up.
But that's human.
Look at the grace that you just gave that young person that you didn't give to that older person.
No, my conversation has been what? Both sides need to do it.
And I'm understanding that, but at some point, as a young person, there's no but at some point, as a young person, you have to learn. You have
to. Both sides need grace. Both sides have to learn something. Both sides have something to learn. And so we can't say that older generations learning something is more important than
young understand as a young person, what you need to learn as a young person comes from that person.
But what
it is not always going to be in the shape or form that is a smooth pill going down.
Understood.
Sometimes life is not about experience. Life will get you sometimes. And as you get older, you'll get that. So a lot of my students come back to me now who I was very hard on, and they laugh and joke with me now as adults because it was still an understanding of they didn't understand why I was saying that.
Right.
You know, I don't teach regular classes. I teach art, theater. So a lot of them who wanted to do those things, the information that I was given, that I applied, that I experienced, and that I made my own, I had to give them that same information. Because most teachers are only teaching you the way their teacher taught them.
Right.
Or if my teacher was missing something, you know, I was in elementary school right at that time where a teacher could hit you. So it was a little different, but it was still a way of, so I learned how to be more aggressive in a classroom. One, I'm a Black man, and many of the students that I was teaching wasn't used to having that in their household. I'm not judging, I'm just saying what the facts were.
Right.
So me coming into a school system, I had to learn how to, one, be cognizant of this person may not see a Black man like you on a daily basis. So present yourself in a way that is soothing. And I do this thing where I say, hello, sir, how are you doing, ma'am? How you doing today, miss? And young people don't like that. Young people hate that because they feel like I'm aging them. Like my name not Mr., but that's my sign of respect.
Right.
So learning these things is a give and take. And I love the conversation because it speaks so much to the industry that is music.
Right.
It speaks so much because we have to receive, receive these things. And like you said, these are life things. These aren't just music industry things or faith-based things. These are people things. These are human things. And I respect your information and what you're putting out there in terms of representing yourself. And I'm sure you know better.
And I'm playing devil's advocate. I
get you.
I'm playing devil's advocate because I do understand. And what I know is why people turn away from God or anything in life, whether it be old, young, new, is how you approach us. It's how you approach humans. If that human, it doesn't matter what it is, how wise, how immature, how ignorant you may be, if it's brought to you incorrectly,
right?
I'm not going to. What you got to say? No.
But and then that's the disconnect for me because you just said how you approach me. That approach goes both ways. How you respond to how I approach you.
Exactly.
Because you again, and I tell a lot of young people, please learn something before you question it. Because at this point, you're just making up a question to ask. And that means you haven't even been listening to the girth of this conversation because you're jumping ahead, you're not listening, and you have an answer not a question in your head. You feel like you have an answer to say.
That's interesting because my niece, she does that. It doesn't frustrate me. I mean, because I did it as a kid. We all did it as kids. And so my understanding of that kicks in. And okay, let me not get frustrated with you because I understand that's a youthful thing. This is why you're wrong. It's not, you don't know what you're talking, be quiet. It's not that. It's,
how many children you think will accept you telling them they wrong? How does that work out for you?
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. And so the approach when you're coming to the youthful, if we just off rip say you're wrong, I'm not going to be mad if they turn around and look at me and say, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. Leave me alone. I'm not going to be mad at that because I do understand. I get it. If I come off that way, that, hey, what you believe, how you operate is wrong. Cut it out. You need to be doing it this way. You need to be doing it my way.
Well, that type of instructor, because I'm a yeller, I'm a sit your ass down type of person myself. But it's an individual who that's not their calling to be in that environment. And we often, just like spiritual leaders, we keep on, giving people the mantle because they literally have a voice that sounds like what a pastor's supposed to sound like.
Yeah.
Or they have legacy. Their granddad was, their dad was, so you are. Or they know how to shout and dance and step. And for me, that was a big no-no for me in church because I did not yell and scream. I'm Catholic. We sit still and we're quiet. And that was a big thing for the AME church that I found myself in. They didn't understand. They not about to run around this building. They could sit here and be entertained by you all, and I'm gonna get my Jesus in my way. And that's something that people have to understand as well. But it's give and take. I have to be mindful, and guess what? You have to be mindful, even on the receiving end.
Facts.
And it's something that I think will push things along. And one of the things I feel very uncomfortable for many artists because if you're not talented, then you're not going to be on the save list. And that alone makes me uncomfortable. Or if you don't have that thing that make my hair stands up, then that makes you not saved. And that just may mean I may need a little bit more support so I can get to that point. But again, the older generation has to go back to mentoring and being the transition in that gap. And young people have to learn how to learn. And it's not always going to be as fast as you want it to be. It's not going to always go down as smooth as you need it to go. But you got to learn how to learn.
We go through that in every stage of our life, no matter how old we get. And what breaks my heart is the demonizing. Because I'm out of that phase and you're going through that phase. Oh, that's what breaks my heart, honestly, and where, why I write, where I write, how I write. It's to eliminate the judgment of where you are. Where you are is not where you're going to end up, definitely. Right. But I'm going to give you the understanding. I understand.
But those people are being uncovered in this season right now. Those people who refuse to change and refuse to give grace and mercy, they're being used for the ultimate good right now. And they're being tested in ways that they didn't think they could still be tested.
And that hurts my heart too.
It shouldn't, but that's growth though. That's what happens when you rely too much on your flesh and not too much on his understanding.
My heart doesn't hurt for them necessarily because that's growth. My heart hurts for those that will watch. You gotta have compassion. From the outside, it looks like the church doesn't have it together.
They don't. The church is a hospital. People, please understand that. And that's something that if you listen to the right older lady for long enough, you'll hear that message. The church is a hospital. Nobody is perfect in that church. We're all on life support. I don't care what your position is, what your leadership role, you are on life support.
And the unfortunate part is the message up front has not always been that. The message has been, this is how you sing, this is how you sound, this is how you stand, this is how you dress, this is how you're perfect. You have to be perfect. That's the upfront message. Where the upfront message should be, hey, why, or let me not say should. No, that's a preference. How do we think it would be if we said, hey, look where I am right now. This is how I got here. Versus
let's throw this on. If people that were coming from the world said that, they wouldn't be in church. They wouldn't feel the need to go to church. But they came to church because they felt there was a disconnect in that whole messaging that you just said. But as we close out, because this has been a very great conversation, and I want to have you back very soon, please let us know where we can find your new album, your music, where we can find you on social media and all that jazz. And I have one last question for you before you leave.
Everything can be found at my website, www.calebperryworld.com.
So we're going to put that information out there for him, for everybody. Put it on our social media as well. If you go on your stories and stuff, you can search his name and his music will come up so you can make it your story or your real background music. Last question to you. What advice would you give to your 17-year-old self? And what question would you ask to your 100-year-old self?
My 17-year-old self, I would say, be patient. Patient. Things will change. And to my 100-year-old self, I would ask, what was your most enjoyable moment of life? What got you to that point? Like, what ignited that?
And I have a secret for you. So those questions are where you are right now. So right now you're seeking, where's my pleasure? Where's my happy? And based off what advice you gave to your 17-year-old self is a direct mirror of where you are right now. So these are meditation prompts, writing prompts that every now and again when you feel like a struggle is happening, ask yourself those questions and it'll give you, it'll change as you're changing, as you're growing. And it'll give you a good indication of where you are in a moment. And that goes to anybody that's listening. Just use it in the morning or randomly in your new year, wherever you see fit for it. And it gives you a pretty good indication of where you are. Thank you, Mr. Caleb. I'm definitely going to have you back on, so get your schedule together because you're going to get a call shortly. Let me know when the music comes out because we'll be able to share it and maybe do a listening party for you and such.
It's out
say it again.
It's out today.
It's out today. Okay. And they can get it by going to your website.
Yes. It's on iTunes if you don't want to go to the website. It's the website. iTunes, Spotify.
You got to give them grace and mercy. Give them grace and mercy.
Exactly.
So we'll be back next week. Actually, next week we'll have Mr. Theo joining us. He's a Baltimore artist, producer, photographer, all things that we all Black artists have to be in today's world. So join us next Friday, same time at 5 p.m. And don't forget, on the 24th of this month, we'll be doing the You Thought I Was Him series. We'll be starting that with Troy Burton, Tracy Jiggets, and Michelle Gaskin. So tune in to the Artist Exchange Radio Show on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Peace out and have a wonderful evening, daytime if you're listening from another country. Peace out.